Okay, so marriage and family counseling session 8, blended families. Often when we think of blended families, old school, the Brady Bunch comes to mind, or today's thinking it's Modern Family. But some blended families may be like the ones on television. But what we see portrayed on television are surfacey. There's usually not a lot of depth to them and not a lot of reality. So we talk about step families and single parent families. Those represent the most significant cultural change in our culture in the church today. We talk about blended family systems. And if you think about your own life, your own relationships, the people you know, relationships you're a part of, the church you're a part of, you see that every single one of us has been impacted by this blended family system. So we've either personally experienced it or we're connected to someone close to us who has experienced the disintegration of the family of origin and then become part of a different family other than the one that they were born into. So our working definition of blended family is any family that involves two committed co-parents in which at least one of the partners has been or is a parent to one or more biological children with a prior partner. I know that sounds kind of convoluted, but there's so many combinations of blended families that this covers it the best. So anytime you've got a child who is brought into the home in which one or both marriage partners are not the biological parents, you've got a blended family. Now, whatever took place that preceded the creation of the blended family, it can be divorce, it can be abandonment, it can be death of a spouse, death of both parents, or even adoption. Okay. These blended families coming from disintegrated family systems continually face issues from the paradigms of the past as they try to build a new family and develop a new family culture. So, and on top of that, when you add the likelihood that statistically, two whole households will very likely be involved in the parenting of at least some of the children. So now you have dynamics of each household affecting the other household. So, you know, statistically, we got a bunch of statistics you guys can look at, but I think one of the most, if you go down to other notable statistics, there are 14 million stepmothers in the US today. These are married or cohabitating, and does not include adult step families. Because sometimes you have two people get married and they have grown children. There are 35 million Americans in the US today who are remarried. Additional 36 million Americans who are divorced or widowed. According to the US Census of 2007, we don't have current numbers. 1/3 of individuals who got divorced in 2008 were re-divorcing. That is, divorcing again. And about 1/3 of step family marriages last. That's not very good numbers, right? If you go down toward the bottom of that, 10% of women in the US have had 3 or more marriages, divorces, or cohabitating partners by the age of 35. By age 15, 29% of US children experience 2 or more mother partnerships, either marriage or cohabitation. And the more parental partnerships that children experience, the lower their overall emotional, psychological, and academic well-being. So let's take a look at blended families from the Bible's perspective. Now, we see numerous examples of polygamous marriages all throughout the Old Testament into which children were born. And voila, you've got an instant blended family, complete with half siblings and step parents. Okay. You take a look at the dynamics of Jacob's blended family. What resulted out of that was hatred of one group of half brothers toward a half brother of another group. And out of this seedbed, you end up with Joseph's dehumanizing treatment by his half siblings. First, they were going to kill him because he was an enemy, and they decided, no, we can make a buck off of him. So then they sold him. He became a commodity they could make money off of, and was sold as a slave. Then you fast forward to King David's household, and you have one of the foulest stories of malevolent treatment by one half sibling of another, and the murderous results. You got Amnon raping his half sister Tamar, and the half brother Absalom, who is Tamar's brother, murdering Amnon after all of that. But of course, the most famous blended family in the Bible is the family of Jesus. He lived with his biological mother, his stepfather, and half brothers and half sisters. Now, we don't see much mentioned at all about their family and the community dynamics, but there are a couple of instances where some of the dynamics are revealed. And you can look at those references. We don't have time this evening to look at them. When you look at these examples in Scripture, we see very clearly that while God can and does use blended families to provide and care for those he loves, this family system is not God's best. It can be second best, and it can end up being very good, but it's not God's best. God never intended for the family to disintegrate for any reason. Okay. So let's talk about some of the key issues with blended families. When families are blended, there's several things that happen simultaneously and several issues that rise up that no matter how well or how poorly they're prepared for or addressed, they're going to have far-reaching and ongoing effects, not only for each person that's directly involved, but also on all the other relationships that each member of the family is involved in outside of the blend, even on into future generations. So some of the key issues that we see rise up, we see marriage and remarriage, parenting, co-parenting. We have shared parenting, co-parenting with a second household. We have siblings, step-siblings, and half-siblings. Then we got all the matters of visitation, holidays, birthdays, other celebrations, graduations, prom, all of that stuff. Little League games, all of that, right? Then you have all the living arrangements that have to be addressed. You see the mess, the convoluted mess that you end up having to face with a blended family? Now, some of the ways that these things will manifest is you got a parent or step-parent who typically do not treat children in the blended family equally. It's really difficult for a step-parent to have the same sense of love and attachment for non-biological children. Many step-parents find it difficult to love their stepchildren, especially because the stepchildren have been influenced by, let's say it's a mom, by a different mom, right? Well, the new mom has got to step in here and deal with all the relational dynamics of the first mom, and has to develop her own relationships with these children. Same thing with a father, right? So we have to remember that remarried spouses often make their biological children a greater priority than the new spouse, which in turn strains the new marriage relationship, sometimes to the point of breaking, which is why we see so many remarriages, especially when children are involved, end up in divorce. And children who have experienced a disintegrated family, especially through divorce, are often very resistant to connecting to a new family because they intuitively know that their biological parents are supposed to be lovingly married to each other for the rest of their lives. So even though there's been evil afoot, God's design, they know intuitively, naturally, is for their family to stay intact. When mom or dad gets remarried, the opportunity for mom and dad to coming back together has just been destroyed. So hope is now removed of restoration of the family, which is what the children naturally want, because they want God's original design to be experienced. Discipline from a step parent often results in opposition, frustration, and even disrespect. You're not my mom. You're not my dad. Right? So then we end up with polarization between the parents as well. We also have the dynamic of children of divorce usually have two homes with different rules, different methods of discipline, different cultures altogether. Then you have the extended families, aunts, uncles, grandparents, all of that, who won't always accept the new spouse or the stepchildren, which adds to the hurt. And then we see that remarried spouses often have difficulty working with the other biological parents, right? We see this, I can't even tell you how often. You probably have all seen it yourself. And then remarried spouses often find it difficult understanding or adapting to the new role as a step parent. If they don't have any children of their own, being a parent is a brand new thing. If they do, they're accustomed to parenting their children with all the dynamics of that and the culture of that. But now they're trying to co-parent with children who are not theirs with all the dynamics of that. So I've counseled a lot of families who are blended families who got little to no pre-marriage counseling on about blending the family, even about how to pray, whether this was God's best, whether we ought to do this in the first place at all. So there are 4 basic principles that we want to look at when it comes to co-parenting with another household. The first one is you have to accept the children as members of 2 households and remember their need to belong to both households, not just yours. So asking them to choose between or to give preference to one or the other it's not only unfair, it creates a burden for the children and it's not theirs to bear. Principle number 2 is be supportive of the parenting in the other household. So if your child returns to your home complaining about being grounded in the other household, don't degrade the other parent's discipline style in front of your child. If you have a problem with the way that discipline is handled in the other household, then you need to talk to the other household, not to the children. Now, that other household may not change their parenting style, but you've at least told them, look, this is an area where we have a clear difference in parenting and I don't agree with your approach. And then the language you need to be able to have with a child is, okay, that home, that household does things differently than we do in this home. Okay, so when you're part of that family system, you will do things the way they do. And when you're here, you do things the way you do. Like pretend you're going between Mexico and Canada. So when you're in Mexico, you do things the way people in Mexico do. When you go to Canada, you do things the way people in Canada do. Help them understand there's some cultural differences and not make it a polarization about the relationships. The third principle is it's important to keep the other household informed about the children's activities, events going on in their life, accomplishments, and even misbehaviors. Now, you can't expect the other household to enforce your consequences for the misbehaviors that happen in your household. But you need to keep them informed so that it allows them the option. Say, okay, well, Agatha got grounded because she lied, said she was doing her homework, she was texting her friends, and she was on Instagram. Okay, so she's grounded from her phone. So then Agatha's dad goes out and gets her another phone so that she's got a phone that she can use while she's at his house. That's fine. Okay, that's what he decides to do. But when Agatha comes home, that phone's not part of the family system at mom's house. So that phone gets shut off and put away, and we're going to continue on. So you got this little detour, you got this little vacation. Now we're back to picking up where we left off. So it's your choice. You can either continue the grounding while you're the 3 days at your dad's, or we can wait till you get back and we'll just start over. You decide. A lot of times as children get older, they'll say, I'm grounded, I can't have a phone. The children will actually bring the discipline factor with them. And then the fourth principle is try to help children identify with the positive qualities in the other household. Now, it's really hard with a narcissistic abuser to say there's anything positive, but you can say, well, you got a bed to sleep in, hopefully, right? Things are provided, God is providing, point to God instead of the other household. Now, if the other household emphasizes athletics while yours emphasizes academics, encourage the children in both areas. Don't make it an either or situation for them. Then we've got the dynamics of living arrangements. Where they live and their specific living arrangements can have a significant impact on the step family. Now, ideally, everybody's going to move into a home that is new to everybody because it puts everyone at the same starting point. Nobody has a home field advantage, if you will. And it helps family members feel from feeling invaded or like an outsider moving in. Now, in many cases, moving into a new home isn't feasible or practical. It may require children to leave established friendships, change schools, maybe too expensive, or may not be wise for other reasons. So spouses need to prayerfully discuss the options and do what they can to make the best decision for everyone involved. So some of the steps that can be taken to make things run smoother when moving into the home that part of the new family is already established in. The first thing is be sensitive to the incoming family members' feelings. They're very likely to feel like outsiders or even unwanted guests. Also be sensitive to the existing household members. They're likely to feel invaded, especially if changes happen too quickly, or they must now share their room or give up their room altogether. I think that's one of the things that blending families, the grown-ups don't often take into consideration enough, right? They don't take into consideration enough the immediate impact this is going to have of disruption. I mean, the child has already experienced disruption of the disintegration of the family, right? Now we're going to disrupt it even more. The things that you did hold on to as stable now are not going to be stable and dependable. Well, that creates all kinds of doubt, uncertainty, confusion, everything. We have to be willing to compromise regarding furniture and even general household items. You know, do we really need 2 waffle irons? Maybe, you've got enough kids, maybe, but you know, you have to use items from both homes and ask the children for input on which possessions are most important to them. So, okay, we've got, you know, we've got this sofa and love seat. We got what's best here. Let the children be part of the conversation, part of the decision making. One of the greatest disservices parents blending a family can do or do to the children is not involve them in decision making that's going to impact them. It's like the parents feel entitled to make all the decisions without involving the children at all. It's their lives too. Maybe have a family garage sale, sell off all the excess items. You can get the children involved in selling sodas or handing out, I don't know, brownies or whatever, and let them keep the money from that, from whatever they sell or whatever, you know. And maybe even say, okay, we're gonna all the money we make, we're gonna use for a family weekend someplace. We're not just going to pay bills with it. We're not going to do something just really practical. We'll do something fun that we can celebrate together. And it can be used as relationship building and bonding time. It's something we need to start doing some things together. Maybe tackle a redecorating project together to make the home yours as a family. Say, okay, we're going to be moving bedrooms around. Let's talk about how we want to decorate those. Let's talk about painting walls. Let's talk about, you know, new drapes. Let's talk about different things. Right? And it's really important to go slow. Okay, because too many changes in a home too quickly can be overwhelming to the children and the adult, of course, already living there. And the people coming in, they've already making changes. So other changes is it's all going to be part of the ongoing change. But people who live there, all of a sudden, everything is disrupted, right? And we need to step into the incoming members, family members' shoes. What would make them feel more like it's their home too? So we have 20 proactive suggestions for bridge building in blended families. I mean, these are kind of self-explanatory. Be positive about the parent from the former marriage. So remember, children naturally feel like they're an extension and a part of both parents. So we don't want to be derogatory and degrading about the other parent, especially if you're the new step parent. Okay. Well, I really don't know your mom. So, I'm sure you love her for good reason. So tell me about her. Ask the child, and if something has happened, or yeah, your mother, I met your mother, and it wasn't a great meeting. Hopefully the second one will be better. Well, what happened? Well, we just didn't seem to be able to connect, and there was probably too much going on. So you help the child understand things went well or didn't go well, but be that as it may, it doesn't point to the worth, value, or character of either person. Because you have to remember, the bond that child has made with their biological parent started forming the instant they were born, sometimes even before that. And that child's come to depend on that person for a great deal. And so that bond they have, especially with the biological mother, is going to outlast all externals. Need to use hopeful language, anticipate a wonderful future. Use us and we language, collective language. Well, maybe we could this, or well, let's think about this, or what are some things you think we could do that would be helpful? And use tentative language, not definitive language, because if you use definitive language, we will or we're going to, and then it doesn't happen, you are now a liar. You can't be trusted at all. You already feel like you can't be trusted because you're an invading parent, right? Invader in the family. And so help them see that, yes, you've experienced loss, but there's helpful, hopeful things that are being provided in this, and that God is going to redeem this. And He's going to bless us as a family as well. Always give more than necessary. There's a lot of emotions going on as families are blended. And so in the midst of all this transition, there's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of confusion. And so there's a huge sense of ongoing vulnerability, even powerlessness. Don't be flattering, but be complimentary, be affirming. It's a matter of, let's say you've got a new stepson. Let's say his name is Mark. Say, Mark, that was amazing. That was just amazing the way you responded to your sister. I'm really impressed with the kind of young man you are. Even if it wasn't a big deal. Well, I know a lot of young men who would not have been that kind and gracious. So I think it's a big deal. Right? That's not flattery. That is being giving and affirming. Find reasons to thank the child. Has the child done something that's worthy of appreciation? Express that appreciation. Say thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Or even if they say, well, can I help with this? I'm just about done. I'm thank you so much for being willing to help. Tell jokes, laugh together. We all know that laughter can be helpful, and starting to develop a family humor system, if you will. You know how you've got the little inside jokes and things in your own family and your own friend circle. you start developing some of those. Find things to laugh together about. If you make a mistake, laugh about the mistake that you made. Right? Give them an opportunity to laugh with you, even at you if they need to, because laughter will help them relax. And it makes humor in the midst of difficulty an acceptable thing. Creating and maintaining privacy is obviously real clear, even in regular families. So if your new stepson or your new stepdaughter comes to you and said, "Can I talk to you about something?" Okay, this is really personal. I need you to keep it private. Okay, if it's not something that I have to tell your dad, then I will do that. If it's something I have to tell your dad, I will let you know that. So you're letting them know that you want to honor, respect their confidence, as long as it's not sinful to do so. Because remember, sin protects, or secrecy protects sin, privacy protects people. So we want to protect people if we can. Go on an outing together. Find out something that they would like to do, or invite them to do something that you like to do. Hey, I'm gonna go down and shoot some hoops, or I'm gonna go play some tennis, or would you like to come? I've got to get down and exchange this blouse at Kohl's. You want to go with me? Hang out together a little bit. Maybe we'll grab lunch, or maybe we'll grab an ice cream or something on the way back. Doesn't have to be a big excursion. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. Just something where you're investing time together and sharing experience. Also, make every attempt you can to be a bright spot in the child's life. They've gone through a lot of darkness. They've gone through a lot of disappointment and a lot of pain. And a lot of times there's toxic shame involved. Well, if only I did this, if only I did that. We know that if only Ida is the meanest girl in the whole world, right? She's got an evil twin, if only you did, right? If only I did this, if only you did that. So help them see, well, what if this and what if that? Sweetie, what happened between your parents, even though it feels like it was your fault somehow, it wasn't at all, okay? There was a breakdown in their relationship. And while it would be amazing if you could be like Jesus and hold them together no matter what, you're really not your responsibility to do that, as much as you wish it was the case. And I know it hurts. I know it hurts to have to see that truth. We talk about practice giving praise. It's about identifying character, not about performance. They can't control performance as much as they can control character. So affirming character is more important, praising character. You can say, oh, I know you tried, I know you did your best out there, and you won the tournament. That's amazing. What I think is even more amazing is that you were a gracious winner. See, even if you're complimenting them, praising them on tangible success, you want to praise them on their character more. Be a friend. You know, we see that there's a friend that sticks closer than a brother. Looking and seeing the breakdowns in the child's life and extending grace and kindness and the willingness to let them know that you care. You can't fix it. There's no fixing it at this point. But give them an opportunity to be who they really are. 13 is believe in the power of love. We in 1 Corinthians 13, we see, what love, self-sacrificial love really looks like. And when you put that in there within the dynamic of a blended family, is that there's a kind and tender affection is required, and a great deal of patience with the ease of sinfulness with someone who's been through the disintegration of a family or a loss of a parent. Love is very powerful because love comes from God first. 12 is be the parent you would like to have. So imagine that you have gone through what this child has gone through, or these children have gone through. If I was in this place, what kind of step parent would I hope I would have? What kind of, or maybe you're not the step parent, maybe you're the natural parent who's still in the home. If this had happened between my mom and dad, how would I want my dad to act? You know, oh, you mean treat others the way you want to be treated? That's a great idea. Somebody should write that down. You need to really avoid triangulation because it can happen in a second, right? Pitting one person against another. And you guys are a little bit familiar with that, I'm sure. Well, can I do such and such? I don't see why not. Oh, good. Not knowing that they'd already asked the other parent said no. Or triangulating in other ways where they're saying, well, my real mom never does that. My real mom would never do that. That's another way of triangulating. Don't fall for it. Say, okay, your real mom isn't here, not part of what we're doing here. So we're not going to do this. Let's find another way to deal with this. You have to be flexible. There's a lot of stuff happening mentally, emotionally, plus the tangible aspect of it. So remember that, think of their hearts as being bruised. You know what it's like to have a bruise on your arm, a pretty significant bruise on your arm or on your leg. You don't want anything to get near it or to touch it because the pain is going to be far greater than it would be if you didn't have the bruise. Well, that's what's going on. So they'll be very tender and easily bruised, easily wounded on top. So it won't take very much. So say, okay, normally we're not going to do this way. I realize you're having a difficult time tonight. So let's do this. Okay, let's set the homework aside for a little while. Let's talk through a little bit. Okay, let's give you a chance to have some quiet time with God and talk through with God. And then we can talk through it a little bit and see what's going on in your heart and your mind that is more important than homework tonight. That shows care, and it also shows flexibility. Say, hey, we're supposed to eat dinner at 6:30. Well, it's almost 7 o'clock and so-and-so's not home. You don't drop the hammer on them. Say, I forgot it. I lost track of time. We have to remember that being rigid actually causes more fear and actually more rebellion. So parents, do not exasperate your children. Does that sound familiar? Bring fun into it. Play age-appropriate games. Especially if you can get into a game with a child and they have an opportunity to beat you, that's golden to them. They feel like a victor instead of the loser that they kind of feel like because their family's disintegrated. Look for common interests. Just one example comes into mind, and newly blended family, been together just a couple of months, and one of the daughters came, stepdaughter came home earlier from school. I guess it came home from school, didn't have practice, so they normally have practice. So normally wouldn't be home at 3:30 in the afternoon, right? Well, stepmom is in the kitchen. She's got music going, and she's singing, singing and dancing to the song, but it's a song that is popular with the stepdaughters peer group, right? So the stepdaughter sees, yeah, my stepmom knows the lyrics. She's having fun with it, and she's surprised. I had no idea you knew this song. She says, yeah. And then, and then get in a conversation about that particular group or that particular song or something like that. Share the common interest. And of course, if you've got, in the athletics, what's your favorite team? Always like this team, So I've never rooted for the Jets. So I'll tell you what, next Jets game, we'll watch it, and I'll try rooting for the Jets and see how I do, and you let me know. Right? Or maybe there are things that you have in common. Do those things together. 17 is be a cheerleader. Everybody needs to feel like they've got someone in their corner. God's in our corner. We see that in Scripture. And we can affirm that. Say, look, it says, this I know, God is for me. Well, I'm for you too. God's in your corner, I'm in your corner. Okay. So when a child is able to overcome a difficulty or an obstacle or accomplish something, or they're trying, you cheer them on, you root for them. 18 is overcome resistance. Remember that each one of us is going to be powerfully loyal to what we're most familiar with, especially the old way of living, the former family, all of that. So that sense of loyalty is going to create resistance to new things. So the way we overcome resistance is to not give up, continue to press, continue to be kind, continue to seek ways to find places of agreement. Even if the child refuses to surrender that, you still continue to do that. And over time, when you're loving, when they're unlovable, when you're kind, when they're not, when you're gracious, when they don't deserve it, when you're merciful and they really don't deserve that. Remember what it says in Romans 2 verse 4 that it's God's kindness that leads us to repentance. 19 and 20, include children in your plans. So say, hey, we're going to do this. Okay, we've got a weekend together. We've got a couple of choices of what we can do. So now, so we're going to do the beach, or are we going to go to the park, or are we going to go to the zoo, or are we going to go, what are we going to go to a movie? What is it we're going to do? Plan the excursion together. Say, okay, so, or we're gonna go to see, gonna go see grandparents. It's a 2-day trip. We're gonna drive together. So let's talk about what we're gonna do on the way, how we're gonna do this. Let's plan this all out together. Let them be involved. Let them be part of the planning. You cannot overlook the desires or sense of need of the children. And the thing is that we can say, okay, we got a problem here. Okay. We seem to not be able to respect each other's space. So we need a rule, and then we need consequence for what we're going to do when that rule gets broken. Invite them in, give them ownership into the process. Very, very effective. Works in classrooms too. And then 20, of course, is never give up. Never give up, right? Because they've experienced disintegration, rejection, and all of those things. And it's very easy for them to say, well, it's going to happen again. Or especially if you had a parent abandon the family. Well, and they may not say it out loud, they might. How do I know this step parent is not going to abandon the family too? How do I know that they're going to be any different? How can I trust that? So you're consistency and faithfulness, and your gentleness and your godliness, and your willingness and ability to apologize right away if you get it wrong. That is absolutely critical. And then concluding thoughts. We know that God's design for the family is for the family to be the place where parents nurture their children in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. This is true not only of traditional nuclear families, but also of the non-traditional blended families. So if we get our focus and keep our focus on God's original design and purpose, we'll lay hold of the key to helping those who come to us for help when they face difficulties within their blended family, reminding them, yes, you do not have the original family of origin anymore. You have a blended family. But let's talk about what God's purpose for the family is, whether it's the original family or blended family. Always coming back to God, always coming back to God's design, God's intent. And so as a biblical counselor, you may often be faced with differing specifics, but the underlying issues will be the same. First is people live what they believe to be most true at any given moment. Second, if they believe what God believes, life will be easier to navigate. If they believe that which is contrary to what God believes, life will be ever more complicated and difficult. So we always want to bring them back to say, okay, what does God say about this? And if they don't know, you teach them. The third thing is self-righteousness, idolatry, and foolishness underlie every and all sin responses of every fallen human being in relationship with fallen human beings. I have a view of myself and I'm right, and I'm going to judge everybody based on that. Or idolatry, someone or something other than God is in first place, or just plain foolishness. And the last one is being transformed by the renewing of one's mind, exchanging lies for truth, and being more and more surrendered to the indwelling Jesus Christ are the solutions to every problem faced. The key for you as a biblical counselor is to guide people to the place where they know, understand, and are able to live this out more and more as time goes on. So we actually cooked through that whole lesson fairly quickly.